And time now for international headlines with Patrick Reevell. Patrick, China is cracking down on protests over its zero COVID policy, but public resentment over these strict lockdowns is growing. So how significant are these protests, and are they expected to last given the government crackdown?
Hi, Diane. Yeah, I mean, clearly these protests are significant. I mean, basically they appear to be the most widespread and angry that we've seen in over 30 years since the crackdown in Tiananmen Square. I mean, and overnight again, we've seen violent clashes in the southern city of Zhuangzhou and in another city as well. But as you say, the crackdown has been swift. The Chinese authorities have basically flooded the streets with security forces. They've turned the propaganda way up. And right now, it does seem to be working. I mean, right now, as far as we can see, it's relatively calm in most cities. And I think it's obviously very far away from threatening the Chinese Communist Party's grip on power. But, you know, really the big problem that they face right now is that how they're going to get out of this crisis around the zero COVID policy is really very unclear. And it looks like this is likely to continue. And there's been a big development today as well in that a former Chinese leader, Jiang Zemin, has died at the age of 96. That will trigger commemorations. And that's likely just to, you know, again, unsettle things and feed perhaps into these protests. So really, this COVID just looks like it's going to remain a major challenge to President Xi Jinping.
Meanwhile, a senior Russian diplomat says Moscow postponed a round of nuclear arms control talks with the United States set for this week. And they cite the stark differences in approach and tensions over Ukraine. What's your read on this?
Yeah, we've learned that yesterday the Russians have basically pulled out of these talks around a treaty that's known as the New START Treaty. And it's the last major nuclear arms control treaty that still exists between the United States and Russia, and really traces back to the Cold War. And basically Russia has said that it will not go ahead with talks that were due to start this week in Cairo because, effectively, mainly because of the situation around Ukraine. What I think is really going on here is that Russia is trying to use these talks as basically a bargaining chip with the United States. Russia right now desperately wants to have talks around Ukraine to try and freeze the conflict because Russian forces are losing. Vladimir Putin desperately wants a break to try and regroup his forces. And so I think what they're trying to do here is just pull any levers they have to try and get the US to push Ukraine into talks. But I think it's very unlikely to work because ultimately this treaty is still not going to expire until 2026. And obviously Ukraine remains a very urgent issue right now for the Biden White House. But clearly, obviously, this is a concern for the fate of this treaty going forward.
Now, in Belarus, a top jailed opposition leader is reportedly in intensive care after being hospitalized for an unknown reason. What's the latest there?
Yeah, this is very disturbing. I mean, we've heard yesterday that essentially Maria Kolesnikova, who was one of the faces of the mass protest that broke out in the summer of 2020 in Belarus and nearly toppled its dictator, Alexander Lukashenko, we learned yesterday that she is apparently in intensive care in a hospital in Belarus. She's been jailed since 2020 when she prevented the authorities from forcibly deporting her, and she's been jailed since then, sentenced to 11 years in prison. Right now we don't know the reason why she was hospitalized. What we've heard in the last couple of hours from her supporters is that she was basically operated on 2 days ago. Supposedly doctors are telling them that that operation was successful and that she is conscious. But clearly, there's a lot of concern about what her actual condition is. They say that her lawyer is being denied access to her father's being denied access. All they know is that before she was brought there, she was supposedly being kept in a punishment cell in this prison. And so obviously people are watching this closely, and there is a lot of concern for her health.
All right, Patrick Reevell, we appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.